my head custodian at my old school. His first day on the job, I asked him what he wanted the kids to call me. And he was like, I don't want them to call me anything. And I said, no, like, do you want like Mr. Smith or do you want Mr. Jeff? And he was like, oh, what do you mean? And he was coming from a school that the kids would throw trash on the floor in front of him for him to sweep up. And I was like, no, we really care about you here and you're a part of our team. And he grew to feel the love. And it's a school that he wants to stay at for the rest of his career. And I feel like I don't want to be treated better than him because I'm one of the leaders in the building. Like, I think we should all be treated the same way. And I really value my staff. And I think they can feel that and they can see that. And even when I was a classroom teacher, like valuing the teams that I'm working with, I left the school out of a little school named Odessa Public School. It's actually quite large right now, but it was tiny when I was there. And we really came together as a team. And I was working with a primary teacher on doing a book talk or a book project together, like just really bringing together people as a team and knowing that we're all in it for our students. I think that's one of the biggest things that I bring to the role.
What a great story. And I think it really typifies Mistene's belief to include everybody and just try to find a way for everybody to feel part of things. And it was a great conversation to have with her around that, as also it reminded me so much of myself back in my early days with technology and being that very early adopter, excited to try new things, never saying no to anything. So there was a lot of connection that we felt there. But I met Mistene probably a decade or so ago. She just won an award with Mindshare Learning from Robert Martellacci, and I think it really gave her some confidence to know that like she was on the right track, doing so many really good things. First of all, I love the idea that we acknowledge these people that do this. And sometimes the early adopters, or we take them for granted because they will always say yes. And so we have this core group in every organization of people who are always willing to try new things. And yet we know that we have to focus more on that middle part of folks who are maybe more cautious, more hesitant. But I think it's important to celebrate those people who are just there all the time and willing to say, let's try this and have that attitude. And she tells another great story in the podcast of a very simple question that one of her mentors asks, and you'll hear the story later, with just the simple question was, why can't they? And those are moments that people remember in their lives when they hear that from leaders. And it's a great lesson for us to remember that the words we say really does have an impact, and we remember them. And I'm sure that mentor that said those words might not remember that at all, but it made an impact on Mistene, and it's helped continue her to be a very thriving, powerful leader in Limestone District School Board, a place that I've come to know over the last few months. It's been great to work in that board and with the director, Krishna Burra, and all the great team members there. It's just a wonderful culture, and I think Mistene represents them very well. So enjoy my conversation today with Mistene Clapp.
We just had a little chat about the structure in Limestone School Board in terms of how one goes from teacher to principal to vice principal. And I'm not sure maybe other boards have this same structure, but there's a very specific intention to the way that works. Can you maybe just walk people through that process?
For us here in Limestone, you are a teacher first and foremost, and you can be a consultant or a learning coach. And then you put your name in and apply and compete to be in a vice principal pool, where they then place you in a school as a vice principal. From there, if you decide as a vice principal you want to try to become a principal, you put your name in and apply and compete for a spot in the principal pool. And then they will pull you from the pool and place you in a principal position when an opening comes up that you would be a good fit for.
So talk about the process from teacher to vice principal. Like, how long did that take when you said you thought you wanted to do that and before you were actually a vice principal?
Oh my goodness. I taught for 14 years, I think, before I went into admin. I was in a leadership position at the board doing a system-wide technology role and wanted to continue on with leadership. And I felt that I really liked that influence that you had over making the school's a better place and education a better system. And I went back to the classroom just so that I was leaving from the classroom. Like, to me, that was really important. I wanted that one last educational experience in the classroom. And I applied and competed. It was a longer process. Back then, we had to do some written activities. It was right during COVID, so it was all actually on the computer. I can remember doing my job interview with a mask on my face. Like, it was a crazy times back then. That was back in 2020. And throughout that month, we did interviews and different processes in baskets. And they placed me in the pool, and I thought I had some like coding opportunities and math coaching roles coming up. So I was sure I would finish out the school year. And I was actually placed in the middle of the school year, halfway through, like after term 1, to a school in Kingston. So for me, it was a very quick turnaround. For some people, they do wait in the pool for longer. Just being brand new at this school, that I'm at a school named Molly Brandt in Kingston, and I was just placed there February 1st. So I'd imagine I'm going to be there for about a year and a half, if not longer. So my jump from VP to P will take a little longer than my jump from the teacher level to the VP level.
So again, it's different everywhere you go. It's also different. Sometimes they're called assistant principals. Sometimes they're called, the names are different, but the roles I think are similar. However, I'm always curious about the role of the vice principal is a little bit elusive to me. Principal, I feel like I kind of get, because like I've seen and I've been part of that. But the vice principal role, I mean, you can only speak for yourself, I suppose, at this point, but like give us a typical day in the life of a vice principal in Limestone's District School Board.
Every school is different, but through the Ontario Principals Council, they do have like a job list for what principals' job lists are. And for vice principals, it just says duties as assigned. So it's pretty much anything that your principal deems is your responsibility. My last school I was at, Bath Public School, I was in charge of transportation. My principal and I worked really closely and kind of divided and conquered a lot of the responsibilities. I'm working in a team of 3 now, and we all divide up the responsibilities as well, but we do everything from transportation to family phone calls to suspensions to team meeting. Every Friday at the school, we have a student success meeting that we attend at 7:15 in the morning. We're really involved in everything that we can be, but it is really the principal's job to determine what our roles look like.
What do you think? Again, somewhat limited experience, but you're also, like you said, a classroom teacher for 14 years, so you have lots of experiences. Like, when you look at the role of principal, vice principal, like what characteristics, maybe 2 to 3, do you think are the most critical to be successful in that role?
Wow, you need to be passionate about education and making the system a better place. You need to be, look, it's all the ATEs. Passionate, compassionate. Let's put compassionate in there too. You really need to be empathetic and be able to see things from other people's points of view, whether it's a student who's going through a rough time, a family that's going through a rough time, or a staff member. You really need to be able to put yourself in their shoes and support them to the best that they can be. And you need to be flexible. Like, I go from being the person in charge of kicking people off property to the person in charge of cleaning the bathrooms or cleaning puke off the floor in like a matter of minutes. So it's really everything we can do to support the building. So definitely like empathetic, compassionate, flexible. I think those would be my top 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because here's some things you didn't say, which are, again, I wouldn't suggest you think or anyone thinks they aren't important, but you didn't list like being very organized as a top. I mean, it's in the list for sure. It helps. Nobody's going to deny it. But you didn't list those kind of managerial strengths that you have to be very organized, making sure that you are aware of what's happening at all times, those kinds of things. Like, and what I wonder is if the things that you mentioned have become more important over time, or were they always the most important things for forever? I just wonder if there's any changes in the way that a principal or a vice principal has to behave today than they did when, say, you were a student, your observation as a student in the past.
I think all of those managerial skills are really important in a management role anyway. Like, they're basic skills that you need to have. I need to know that I've got my Friday meetings. I need to know when I have parent meetings after school. when field trips are going to be like, I need to be organized and stay on top of that. But you can be organized. And like, if that was my number one skill was being organized, but I'm not compassionate or empathetic to the troubles and the trials and tribulations that people are going through, I'm not going to get anywhere in this line of work. And not even just admin, but in teaching in general, because we need to know that our kiddos, the classroom is the safest place that they have. And we need to understand that and know that we're their safe spot and we're the best that they've got to deal with in a day. And no amount of organization is going to get you ready for that.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, I've often sort of said that there used to be a time where as an educator and a leader, you could get away with not being as compassionate as you are today, because there was an agreement that mom and dad look after all of that social and emotional stuff. That's not a school problem. A school problem is academics only. That's why you're here. The other stuff is inconsequential. But that's not the world we live in today. And also, I think we understand that it wasn't a great world back then, because even though a kid might not necessarily be outwardly misbehaving or struggling, that not knowing who they are as individuals and caring for them is going to impact the way they learn and how much they can learn when they don't feel safe or they don't feel like this is the right place, because we're not, again. So I think there's definitely a shift. I think there used to be administrators who could just sort of lean on their organizational and managerial skills to get them through. I just don't think those are the top priorities anymore.
No. And I think I'm doing a lot of work around trauma-informed practices right now. So it's like, that's where a lot of my learning has been based on for the last couple of years, and really like how we can support our families and our students through whatever they've gone through or going through, and still make sure that the school is a good place for them and they are still learning and becoming successful.
So shift gears slightly. I first became aware of you a number of years ago because you were a big time award winner. You won awards. You were recognized for all the cool stuff you did. And again, that's kind of how I came to know of you. So here's the question. If you're thinking back to those 14 years as a classroom teacher, and I really like this question because I like to hear what people choose. And I know you've had a chance to think about it, so I'm not putting you completely on the spot here. But if they had to make a 30-minute highlight reel of the best moments as a classroom teacher, so maybe that's 2, 3, I don't know, 4 moments, whatever you want to choose. Like, what do you, when you look back, you think of like, yeah, that was a very seminal and memorable time in my, and maybe they're not always positive. Like maybe it was like a disaster that sticks out as being like, maybe it was turned out to be okay or whatever it was. But like, what are kind of the instant memories that come to mind when you look back over your classroom teaching career?
I don't love when one for me. That was, I can still remember meeting you too. We met at the Den is 10 celebration.
Okay.
Yeah, I still have the t-shirt. That was a long time ago.
Now, where was that? Was that in Chicago?
That was Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a long time ago. And that year was a pivotal year for me in teaching. I loved those kids. I think it was the first year that I felt confident in my teaching abilities. I remember so much about it. My kids were finally old enough. My oldest was in school. We were coming out of that dark time in parenting when you're not sleeping, and the class was great. It was a grade 7 classroom, and I had this learning coach. Oh my gosh, I should have put her on my list for like people who have influenced me. Her name's Prisha Evans. She's still a math consultant with the board. And she was my learning coach that year. And I had kids ask at one point, like, can we use Minecraft to show this learning? And I said, no. And she put up her hand at the back of my classroom and was like, why can't they? And we've known each other for years and years at that point. And I was like, well, because I don't understand it. And I was very willing and vulnerable to say, like, I don't know. And she said, well, why don't you give them a chance? And so that really like structured my entire year. And the kids were so tech-based at that point, and we were at a school that had a very open tech policy. Kids could bring in their phones and their iPads, and they did. They showed me their learning in ways that were meaningful for them, and it transformed everything I believed about education. And I don't even say that I won that award because I didn't. They won that award because they were doing such amazing things with technology. And so many of them, like students who had learning disabilities and special needs, like they were achieving at greater levels because they could show me that they understood without putting pencil to paper. Like that was a transformational year. But the whole highlight reel would be just fun and laughter. And I was trying to think of the memories from my first year of teaching. I taught at a school down the road from my parents' house in Brockville. And it was the field trips. It was getting out of the classroom and doing learning out in the field behind the school. That year in grade 7, we'd snowshoe around the golf course. Like those are the memorable things to me is when kids are happy and laughing. It's all about believing in students. And I still love, like I spent a lot of time in Napanee as a teacher, and I still take my kids there for sports. It's the town just down the road, and still running into kids who I used to taught. So I think that would be on the highlight reel as well, is seeing them as grown-ups. Some of them work for me now in the school board, which is super cute to see them as adults and a few of their children. And yeah, the laughter and the positivity. They knew that I always believed in them and that I still believe in them and consider some of them friends. So that would be the highlight.
Oh, I mean, I love it for so many reasons. First of all, I love the story of the leader who just with a simple question, why can't they, really has that much of an impact on you and the students to take you in that. I think that's just a good reminder that as leaders, we do have that kind of an influence with the words we say, both negatively and positively. So I think that's something that stands out. And then the other thing, just listen, if I ask this question to every teacher, I would say most of them would point out similar experiences of those things that are happening outside the classroom because they break the routine too, right? Like that's not your everyday experience snowshoeing. It was enough of a differentiated experience that was like, oh, that sticks out. Which isn't obviously to say that the things that you did in the classroom, because you also talked about the technology and stuff that they were doing in the classroom, that's memorable. But I think there's something significant about calling that out as being, because that's, if you asked your students the same question, I'm sure they would provide you with similar answers. And I mean, I always lament the fact that my first 7 years were spent teaching first grade and I didn't write down stuff. Like like every once in a while, a story will come to mind that I forgot about. It's like, oh, that was so funny. Cause they were just, I mean, that was the best part about teaching little ones is like, they just said the wildest stuff. And now I hear it with my own grandkids and it's like, I used to live in that world when kids said that stuff. I should have wrote it down. I think I could have retired with a great book of their stories.
I know.
Too.
My mom tells me all the time I should write a book. Oh, that's chapter 42, chapter 79.
That's right. Yeah. There's no shortage of that, but no, that's awesome. So when you, again, thinking about, you kind of touch on it, but maybe honing in on what you're most proud of, again, and I'm sure in some of the interviews that you had as vice principal and now in the principal's pool, whether or not this exact question came up, but I wonder if it might, like, what do you feel like you're most proud of in your years as a classroom teacher, even now as a vice principal?
I have two parts to this answer. One of them is I feel like I've been a great role model for my own kids. Even with whatever they do, I'm always like, where do they get that attitude from? Like, where do they get how brave they are and courageous to try new things? And my husband's always like, you are always trying new things. You are always learning new things. You are always like jumping into new opportunities. Like somebody says, hey, do you want to try this? And you say, yeah, sure. Why not? Even if you fail, you're willing to try it. And that's really rubbed off on the people around me, which I'm really proud of because I mean, my kids will try anything once and I'm proud of them for that. Professionally, the thing I'm most proud of is the relationships I can build with people. And I really think that we need to value everybody within our organization. And it's like, I've met people before who my custodian, my head custodian at my old school, his first day on the job, I asked him what he wanted the kids to call me. And he was like, I don't want them to call me anything. And I said, no, like, do you want like Mr. Smith or do you want Mr. Jeff? And he was like, oh, what do you mean? And he was coming from a school that the kids would throw trash on the floor in front of him for him to sweep up. And I was like, no, we really care about you here and you're a part of our team. And he grew to feel the love. And it's a school that he wants to stay at for the rest of his career. And I feel like I don't want to be treated better than him because I'm one of the leaders in the building. Like, I think we should all be treated the same way. And I really value my staff. And I think they can feel that and they can see that. And even when I was a classroom teacher, like valuing the teams that I'm working with, I left the school out of a little school named Odessa Public School. It's actually quite large right now, but it was tiny when I was there. And we really came together as a team. And I was working with a primary teacher on doing a book talk or a book project together, like just really bringing together people as a team and knowing that we're all in it for our students. I think that's one of the biggest things that I bring to the role.
No doubt. Those are two fantastic traits that I think are critical. I think, let's dive into the relationship thing again, because part of what we tend to do in education is we say that a lot. Relationships are the key and so forth. But your example that you gave points to specific ways in which we do that, because who's going to deny that relationships are important? Sure they are. But what does that mean? And is it because that's just who you are that's going to make that? Or are there people who maybe wouldn't think to ask the custodian that question and to dive in, but because it's a lack of awareness, a lack of boldness, I don't know what. But I wonder about it in terms of, like, how do we help people be better at building relationships, whether it's with their students or with their colleagues? Because I feel like I would argue I have the same kind of ability. I can build relationships with people. And I think about, sometimes I process why it is I do that. And I think about, oh, maybe that's the way I do it, because most of it, I think, comes naturally. But I'm sure there's things that I've learned over time that I've seen other people do or I've read about that I now incorporate that maybe I wouldn't have. But I wonder how you kind of sort of deconstruct your desire and your ability to build relationships.
I don't know. I think it all comes from kindness and being taught to be kind and polite and respectful of people. And we do that every day with our jobs when it comes to teaching kids and saying thank you and please. And maybe they will go get your lunch pail for you if you ask nicely. And we need to build those skills in kids. My mom grew up driving the bus and working as a court stenographer and a legal secretary, and she ended up in a plant. Like, we didn't come from a place where both my parents earned really great incomes. So we always had to work extra jobs for funds and that kind of stuff. So maybe it came from that work ethic and
Sure.
my background. But I mean, we have lots of kids who come from that background who maybe don't feel the same way about people or how they should be treating people. But I think we really need to work on teaching them kindness and respect.
But again, going back to the first thing you talked about is your desire to try new things and the impact that's had on your own kids. That modeling comes into play. So how do we model what it's like to build a relationship with? And there's so many opportunities now and challenging situations when we have people coming into our community that come from another country, that don't speak our language, that have different cultures and backgrounds. And so there's a challenge, like, how do you build a relationship with someone who doesn't share the same common interests as you? Like, it's easy when it's somebody that's like you to build a relationship, but it's not easy all the time. And so what does that look like? And how do we work towards modeling that to ourselves, but also to those that we serve, that this is how you do it? There's ways to do it, because it's pretty special. Like this, again, the story you tell is like, it's a pretty special thing to be able to do that for somebody who knows how long he'd been in that position, and just assume, I guess this is the way it is. Like, I kind of suck. It's kind of the way he might have felt, right?
Yeah.
So again, I think it's a fascinating one, but I think it's one that we have to continue to get more discreet and distinct about what does that mean to build relationships. And because I think as young teachers coming into that role, that may not be something that comes naturally to them, because maybe they got into teaching because they love science. They want to be a science teacher, or they like kids, but they don't know what to do when you have a kid that you don't connect with. And so how do you, like, I think there's a lot of strategies and insights and mindsets that have to be put in place to help people overcome that. So
and build their emotional IQ, their EQ, or whatever the term is now.
Yeah. And being intentional about it, for sure.
That's right. And I'm at a very multicultural building, so we see a lot of, like, the kids are very kind to the new students who come in. We had a new little boy who speaks only Chinese, who just started a couple weeks ago, and the kids are so kind to him. And I think sometimes that is a place where you can tap into, is that kindness. And we're treating Joey this way, and how can we extend that to treating so-and-so the same way?
And I really do believe that is a shift in our culture that's happened over time, because I could imagine a similar scenario when I was a kid where a kid came in that was not like you and that kid got made fun of, right? And maybe wasn't welcomed in because we don't understand people from other cultures. We fear things that we don't understand. And so we resort to bad behavior, racism, dare I say.
Mhm.
But I think to your point, I think more communities are like that, would embrace that kid and show them kindness because they probably had more. This isn't the first time they've had a child from another country come into their school or whatever. That's not completely novel. So they have some sense of how to behave and empathy, which is, again,
Yeah.
something that you have to teach.
How to be welcoming.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, we'll shift gears here. Let's talk a little bit about AI. It is the thing that lots of people are immersed in. And again, I've had the privilege of working in Limestone with you and others in the board, trying to wrap their head around this. Like, let's talk first of all about your kind of personal journey, where you are with AI and how AI is part of what you do, maybe on a daily basis, maybe not. I don't know.
I use AI all the time. All the time. And I think it was very eye-opening for me when we had one of our sessions and you were like, oh, AI is actually like Google Maps too. Like it knows where you're going. And I was like, oh my goodness, I literally use it every day. I use it from everything from teacher performance appraisals to letters home to families, not only to spell check, but to make sure my tone is okay. I think sometimes we can be a little snarky when we don't mean to be. And so I have it checked for tone. We looked at report card comments with it. We taught our staff at Bath, my old school that I was at, we taught them how to write their report card comments, how to pull data out of IEPs and make their comments from there. So a lot of things that make their lives easier. With my own kids, like sometimes we do idea generation for staff. My oldest daughter's in high school now, and we'll try to come up with some ideas that she can use for assignments. They are very like we had our first meeting yesterday with the teachers in Limestone for our big pilot, and some of her teachers were there. And there were some teachers who were resistant, and I can see the difference. Like we're using it in elementary for task creation. And I was sitting with some teachers from my old school where I won the award from. And they are very entrenched in using AI for unit plans and vocabulary development and ideas like that and creating with it. So people are like at a different spectrum, but we're trying to use it at home to come up with different strategies that'll will help our kids learn better, which is what excites me about it, is the possibilities to help our students move their learning forward. And like my kids don't need to have somebody edit their essays when they can pop their essay into Copilot and make sure that what are 3 things I can do to make this better? And they go back and forth with it. And it's trying to teach them ways that they can use it, that it's not cheating, as their teachers might put it, or any teacher might put it. It's just a way for them to learn from the AI.
And I think too, what resonates with me from what you shared is just the reaffirmation, because you say you're using it with your own kids. Well, they have the benefit of a mom who understands how to use it and can help guide them. And this is reemphasizing the role of the educator. That's what you need to be able to do. You need to help your students figure this out, because if not, they're just going to do it on their own. And then they're more likely to do something that maybe isn't safe, maybe it's not ethical, but because they don't have that adult oversight to help them process. So I think it's helping reinforce why that's such a big deal. But so as you mentioned resistance for some people, I think that's true. But like in terms of Limestone's kind of working towards this, the environment where you can thrive and utilize this in the most optimal ways, what's kind of the current efforts towards that? Like what does the district kind of do to help people get feeling more comfortable and less resistant? Like you already described, giving a chance to explore some tools, but anything else to share about
Yeah,
that?
we have a presentation we're giving that has been shared with all admin to share on the PA day on Mondays. We have a professional activity day. And for us, for our working group, it's like AI is here. I mean, the conversations we were having yesterday were great with teachers, because I can remember after I won that award, I went to the board and worked at the board as a like consultant technology coach for 4 years. And we really focused on like these apps are here, these platforms are here. How can you use them safely in your classroom? And I think we need to do that focus more in Limestone for AI. And that's what's driving a lot of the learning. How can you use these products safely in your class? And like you said, like ethically to make sure that all of our data is safe. And I think once teachers have an opportunity to play and explore with the tools, they'll start to feel better about them and how they can use it. I think that's the big thing. Like people need to
That's right.
explore and play. When I was at Bath, we did a staff meeting where we just played with some of the tools. And a few of the teachers were like, oh, I'm using Brisk to do some feedback. And it was like, oh, can you show us how to do that? And letting them lead the way. Because as much as I'm saying, oh, it's amazing for doing my TPAs, my teacher performance appraisals, and to check the tone of report cards and the spelling and stuff, for them, it's more about how can it make their lives easier. And we're doing a lot of work around things like assessment and triangulating your data and how they can better use AI to provide feedback and not mark absolutely every piece of paper that comes over their desk. But even opportunities yesterday to play with the 4 tools that we're looking at, I think that broke down some barriers and gave people some ideas as to how they can better use it in their practice.
Yeah, I think doing all the right things to kind of get moved down the line. But like, is there anything that kind of worries you? Like, what's your biggest worry about AI at this point?
Yeah, oh yeah, the deep fakes, those like I see things online all the time. There was a Super Bowl commercial that had like Mike Myers, and I can't even remember what it was, but that came out as being AI generated and they had nothing to do with it. And I think like I worry about my own kids. Like if my oldest had somebody break into her Snapchat account and make a bunch of phone calls from it. And what if they actually had a recording of her voice and were making her say these horrible, terrible things? Like it would go from being a conversation in the admin office to a phone call with the police very quickly. So that's scary. That's scary to me. It's the same as when people started making phone calls to senior citizens and getting them to drain their bank accounts. Like, how much is
Right.
that going to happen? Like, just the dishonesty piece that can come from it. I mean, extremely creative of people being able to do that. But on the flip side, it can be so dangerous if we're not using it properly.
All of that points to it starts at schools to educate kids on number one, how to do your best to make sure it doesn't happen to you. But if you see it, how to recognize it and respond. And so this is where I always say, listen, I don't care if you use AI or not. It's using you, you're seeing it, it's impacting your life. And so as educators and as parents, you are obligated to help your kids and yourself understand
Hmm.
how it works and how it impacts you. So yeah, I think that most of us share that very same concern. Again, in the last few years that you've been in this role, and I want to say leader, you've been a leader as a classroom leader, worked in the district, so you've got a bit of a history as a leader already. But can you think of a challenge? This show always kind of features like a leadership challenge that you recall and faced, and it could be something that you triumphantly overcame and or fabulously failed at and yet learned from it, however you want to frame it. But just when you think about that idea of a leadership challenge, like what's the story that comes to mind?
The biggest challenge in my role is change. And I've already said, like, I embrace change wholeheartedly. I do. I love trying new things and learning new ideas to put into place. But for me, the biggest challenge is the amount of times I change school. It really is. And it's getting schools to a place where things are really great and the staff is in a really great place. And then I'm moved someplace else and starting
Mm,
with other people. And there's a lot of learning that comes with that. But when you're saying goodbye to so many different people, like,
yeah.
right? Like I said, I'm really relationship based and I like to participate in the lives of my students and my staff. It's hard the saying goodbye.
So do you feel like there's unfinished business like when that happens? Like there was more that I had hoped we would be able to accomplish?
Oh, yeah, all the time. I think when you get a staff into a great place, you naturally make plans. Like, we're doing this really well. We're going to do this even better next year. And this is where we're going to go with these plans. And then you end up leaving those plans behind for somebody else to fill in and finish for you, which is the way that it goes. This move was a good one. And the person who's filling in for me at Bath is doing a really great job. But for me, it was hard because we had that staff in a really great spot and we were doing some really great learning with them. And then on the flip side of it, like you're going to a new building where you're trying to fit in and do great things while you're trying to build relationships. My new school is like 3 times the size of my old school, so I'm still learning who some of the people are.
So is there a solution to this? Like, is it that the school board should structure things differently so that you can stay a place longer, or is it just the way that it goes? Like,
Oh,
because again, there's situations where I've seen people stay at a school for 30 years and you think, well, Zach, maybe that's good. I don't know. And then there's people that are like constantly moving every 3 years. And it's like, how do you even accomplish anything with that?
yeah, I did a year and a half in my first school, 2.5 years at my second, and now I'm at Molly. I think that's just the way that it is. Like, it's really great. I'm getting quite the system perspective. I was at a great city school in Kingston to start my admin journey. And then I was out in the country at a smaller country school. And now I'm at a large inner city school. And so I'm really getting to see how different systems operate within our board, which I think is really essential moving into a principal role. If I had only had one school experience, it would be a little bit tricky to apply all these new concepts. I've learned a lot in my 6 weeks that I've had at this school. So I think it's actually a really great opportunity I have. It's hard and I'm used to it, but it's a challenge and it's a blessing. I think if I was staying in the VP role, I'd be a little bit more frustrated by it. But for me, I've learned a lot. We call this area of Kingston the North End, and I've never been at a North End school. I've been at a lot of schools in Limestone, but this is new to me. So the learning
Well,
steep.
and you touch on something too that I think is really critical in the ecosystem of a school or a school system is that, and I was able to be that when I moved from the classroom to working at the central office, I began to understand better why things were done the way they were done. And oftentimes as you're a teacher, you're a little more insular and you just look at the people at central office and think, oh, what knuckleheads, why are they doing this? Like, this makes no sense. Like, everybody's complaining, and it's good to have like a bit of an enemy, and it's a bit of an us, they, which is never a good scenario, but it happens a lot in boards. And part of it happens because sometimes the central office does not do a good job communicating why they made the decision they did. Sometimes people on the school side aren't listening to why. You have the advantage of seeing why. It may not be perfect, but it's the best choice under the circumstances. So I think you're just illuminating a challenge that exists in all school systems, and that is helping everybody in the system understand the decisions being made and why they're being made. And I know you work for a director who's very self-aware of that and works towards communicating that as best he can and as a team, but I don't know if that resonates at all as something that you have privy to in your role to understand why certain decisions are made, even though someone might not see this as the best decision.
Yeah, and I definitely do. I think our board does a really great job of communicating. Like, like I said, I'm so happy with where I am. I think being able to have a system point of view and know what the system needs and where things are allocated to is really essential for these roles. Having the board office role before that, like the central office kind of position, was also great to see how things operated. I didn't even know who Krishna was when he interviewed me for my former role at the board office. I just knew he was somebody who worked I think he was at out of ed services at the time or whatever, but I've been really close to him ever since I did that job. And he's great. I think this AI project is great for him. He's very serious and communicates really well with the whole board, but this kind of like brings out the kid in him. And I think that's important for all of us to have those passion projects. And it's just amazing to see his excitement level. And everybody was shocked that the director was running this professional development yesterday. And I was like, no, like, he loves this stuff. Like, this is right where his passion lies. And he's just so excited by it. And he's smiling the whole time. Like, we're really lucky to have him.
Yeah, no, wholeheartedly agree, because districts you have reasonable sized districts, and superintendents or directors, as they're referred to in Ontario, don't always have the time or energy or interest to engage in this kind of work. But that's been kind of position is like that. This is such an important topic. Like, you need your senior people fully engaged in this. Otherwise, this becomes an IT initiative that may be good, but might not be. And anyway, yeah, it's been a real joy. All right, we got one more question, then we'll kind of wind it up here to some fun ones. I want you to name a person in education that you're grateful for. And you can preface it with the, oh, this is hard because there's so many, but that's what everybody says. Of course there's so many. We get it. You acknowledge that. But just for giggles today, to amuse me, pick one.
Yeah. My former principal who I worked with at my last school, Jean Paquin, is the person I look up to the most in education. When she got switched into my school, it just reignited passion in my leadership journey. She was a coach for me for the year and a half that we worked together. We had a beer together last night. She doesn't know I'm saying this about her, so if this makes the cut, I'll have to share it with her. But
No, it'll be there.
she is all that's right in leadership. And we were the bath night, and she bought a night costume. And so anytime we would do an assembly, she'd put the night's costume on and run through the gym and get kids excited for being there. She had a way to make staff not even feel that she cared. Like she does. She cares about the staff and wanting them to be better. And she just had a way of reading what the staff needed to help move them forward and reflect on what they needed. She would teach classes. Like if we had unfilled jobs, she would go teach the class and I'd run the building. And if we had a student who needed to be put with her because I was busy, she would teach the class with the student working in the building. Like she really did it all. And she always had a smile on her face, and there was never a negative word said. So she is somebody I look up to, and I consider her a mentor, and look forward to being her colleague on her level because I'll never get to work with her again.
Oh, I love that framing that she's all that's right about education. That's a pretty bold, but sounds like an appropriate description of her. So that's nice. All right. Last 3 questions. And just so you know, I asked these 3 questions to Krishna, and you may well, especially the last one. The first two, I guess, are not so much, but the last one is very local based. All right. Professionally, what are you reading and or listening to?
Professionally, I'm not reading anything. So I've got an audiobook going on in my car called The Frozen River. I think because I've been in such a time of change, like I was leaving one school for the month of January and starting a new school for the month of February, I'm on to fiction reading. I've got The Frozen River playing in my car. I really want The Sunrise on the Reaping, the new Suzanne Collins book for the Hunger Games. I've got, I should open up my Amazon cart. I have one.
How long is your commute?
30 minutes, 25.
Okay. That's enough to
Yep.
soak in a chapter or two, whatever.
Yep. I've got one of the books that you've recommended still sitting in my Amazon cart. And then Krishna was telling me about a book yesterday. I should have texted him this morning to find out what it was called, but he was telling me about his wife and I were talking about this influence principle where it used to be 60-40, but now it's 70-30. And if you can get 30% of people to believe in something, they can influence the other 70%. And I'm really interested in that because I feel like when you're trying to make an impact in a building or on a group of people, it's good to know that if I get 30% of those people and they're passionate and excited about what they're doing, then it'll trickle down. There's an image. Oh, look, I'm totally going off track now. There's an image and it's like a cartoon image where it's got a bunch of people. And in the first clip of the people, it's got a person in gold and it's about being the light and bringing the light. And the next clip is like that person has impacted like 2 or 3 people outside of them. And then the next clip is like they've impacted that many more people at the bottom. And I really love that philosophy. And I tell kids about it all the time. And like, I feel like that's who I want to be, is like a bringer of the light and a bringer of the belief, that kind of thing. So I'm really interested in that 70-30 book.
All right. So then guilty pleasure stuff. This is what I always like. Like, what's a binge worthy show, movie, or whatever that's like again, first of all, I love the fact that you're listening to fiction. I'm bad at this and I need to get better at this. So I know this is just another reminder, Dean, listen to fiction once in a while. I'll read fiction. Anyway, but I'm good at trashy shows too. Like I got less about what about you? What's your binge watch?
Right now we binge watched like my brother gave me his Paramount password. I guess I shouldn't advertise that. But we've been binge watching the Yellowstone prequel. Okay. So we're like right up to date on 1923. And all right, like anything Paramount, because I don't do a lot of television. Like I'm normally reading books or going to bed early. My school day starts pretty early now. I like Chicago PD. Like, I think I did the ISTE or ISTE, however you pronounce it, a few
Yeah.
years ago in Chicago, and so I love watching all the Chicago sites, and so that's a big one for me. At school, I keep my YouTube channel put onto that Friends of Big Bear Valley, like the Eagle Cam.
I don't know that.
You don't know that.
No.
So there's 2 eagles, they've, like, mated forever, their names are Jackie and Shadow, and they had a couple of eggs, and they laid their eggs, and we've been watching this eagle cam in my office, and it's, like, the best part of my morning. I put it on, and I check on the little eaglet, and the kids love coming in, and they love seeing, "Oh, look, he one of them brought a fish," and so it's a guilty pleasure through the day. I can totally do, though, like, Big Brother's, like, the binge watch for the summertime.
Yeah, that's one of our families. It's few. It's not like everybody has their own like individual ones that they watch, but then there's a few that like. So I do. I would have to say I do big again. Also too, because summertime. Well, first of all, you have more time
Yeah.
because than you do in the year, and sometimes, and also there's rarely anything else on television at that time, so it kind of corners the market. So yeah, I like it.
Yeah,
It's a good little social experiment, right? You get mad at people and the whole
it
thing. So
is, but
yeah.
I feel like we've, like, lacked on the drama in the last couple of seasons.
Could be, yeah. People sort of, I don't know, figure out how to play the game, and you put yourself in a bad spot when you blow up. But also, those are the fun people that kind of lose their mind. All right. So this is the last question. This is the one that I was saying. Like you got, I can't. I think I remember what Krishna said, but I'll see what you say differently. So, what are some sort of lesser known places? Now, I don't know. Do you live right in Kingston, or maybe you don't live in
I
Kingston
don't,
now?
no,
You're
I
30
I
minutes
live out in
away.
the country in a small little hamlet out in Stone Mills.
Well, okay, whatever. Like that maybe is your go-to place, but like it could be the area. So what are some places in that area? Because I'm coming in another month or so to that area, and my wife's coming with me as well.
Oh,
So
nice.
like
Well, I would say
what
Bath.
what what
So the school I just left is in a little community called Bath, which is west of Kingston. It's right along the waterfront. It's got great restaurants to eat at. It's got a great brewery just up the road. It's got a cute little bookstore that has an amazing coffee shop inside of it. Quaint little shops on the main road. Like I tell everybody about Bath.
okay. Yeah, these are all great. Yeah, people are there's because I'm going to be spending time a little bit in Hastings and Prince Edward County
Yeah.
too, so that is its whole little thing as well.
You gotta
Yeah,
go
not have enough
hiking
time.
if you're down in Prince Edward Hastings. You've got to go do Picton and if your wife likes wine, or if you like wine, there's a whole bunch of like beautiful Ontario wineries down in the county and cideries. And yeah, it's a great place. We have a cottage down in the county and we love the Taste Trail is what it's called.
Nice. Well, Mistene, thank you so much for doing this today. I know this is after a long day for you, and I appreciate you giving me this time. It was great to kind of sit down and just talk and get to know your journey a little bit better. You represent well, both you, your family, and your school board. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me.